It's almost gross the amount of talent that Ohio State's able to bring in, but you still are asking a lot. And from the very limited sample size that we have seen from the college football playoff, it's hard for me to imagine such a young team replacing a new quarterback, which it sounds like we talked about it last episode. We were talking about Julian saying more than likely being the quarterback. So why not we dive in? You see the title, you see the thumbnail, you know exactly what we will be talking about here today, and it's going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes, your defending national champions. Ohio State, in my eyes, I don't see as a program this season, just in the vacuum of 2025, as a team that is more than likely to go back to back. I think it's just too much to replace both offensive and defensive coordinators, to replace that much talent that left the building. Because if you were just to see the preview magazine for college football and it said you have the best player in the overall college football space with Jeremiah Smith, you have the best defensive player in Caleb Downs, and honestly, you can flip between the two on who you think is the best overall. That's an easy sell. They won a national championship last year. These are easy things to buy into in terms of potentially going back to back and winning another national championship. But let's peel back the onion a little bit. Let's look a little bit deeper and understand that there is no Chip Kelly. There's no more Knowles at the defensive coordinator position. The strengths of this team are going to end up having new faces and new players. Now, I will give Ryan Day the credit that he deserves for creating Ohio State into the machine that we know it is today, which is just consistent five-star acquisition after five-star, just the ability to bring in so much talent. It's almost gross the amount of talent that Ohio State's able to bring in, but you still are asking a lot. And from the very limited sample size that we have seen from the college football playoff, it's hard for me to imagine such a young team replacing a new quarterback, which it sounds like we talked about it last episode. We were talking about Julian saying more than likely being the quarterback for the upcoming season. Now, Keen Holes is still definitively in that conversation. It sounds like it's not going to be decided on until maybe for another week. It sounds like they're going to wait to get a couple more scrimmages in, but it sounds, for the most part, Julian Sand has not definitively taken that job. So that's going to be a question mark. You're replacing Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. That's another question mark. I like the pieces that they brought in. They brought a running back in from West Virginia. They have a talented running back that has been with the program. It's a question mark regardless. When I say a question mark, it's not assuming that Ohio State all of a sudden is going to have quarterback, running back problems. It is questions that could potentially stack up in a long list that could hold them back from winning a national championship, because that's the question that I'm trying to answer. What teams could win the national championship? I think college football playoff is pretty much a lock for Ohio State. They have to beat Texas week 1 or they don't, because at the end of the day, it's a non-conference game. The hype with that game is going to be massive, and I'm not trying to discredit it because it's going to be something that I'm very excited about. But at the end of the day, we get to the Michigan game and we're looking back, and it's not going to be something that holds them back from a Big Ten championship. It's, if anything, just going to be a good starting place to understand what are the strengths and weaknesses for Ohio State. They have Penn State at home. They have to go to Michigan and see if they can finally, after the past four or five seasons, they've not been able to get the best of Michigan. Last year, they should have definitively beaten them. And what happened? One of the craziest upsets I've ever seen, with a team that could not throw the forward pass. It was like watching 1960 football all over again, where Michigan basically was just running the football and playing good defense, and that worked against the defending national champions. In hindsight, it's crazy. You do have some concerning, potential pitfalls. You go to Illinois. There's a lot of hype with Illinois. I'm not on that hype train, but a lot of people are more bullish on what Illinois could be with all the returning production. And it's a road game at the end of the day, so you have to be wary for that. And then you have to go to Washington. I think the trenches are going to be the problem there for Washington, but Damon Williams is a dynamic quarterback. And I understand there's this notion that Ohio State is almost indestructible against any of the other Big Ten teams. You're indestructible until you're not, especially in college football. So these are potential games that they could definitely drop. I mentioned the quarterback. I mentioned the running back. I didn't mention the tight end on the offensive side of the ball because Max Clare, Purdue transfer, I think is going to be a dynamic, incredibly good tight end. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's a great NFL prospect. Truly, I think when we're talking about Max Clare, we look back and he's going to be on a lot of top 5, top 10 lists in terms of the position of the tight end. I think the thing that really concerns me after all those questions that I have with the quarterback, the running back, the change of brain power with Brian Hartline at the offensive coordinator position, Matt Patricia. Guys, Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Things that were not on my bingo card going into 2025 whatsoever. I don't know what to expect from a guy like Matt Patricia. I have a lot of negative feelings after what happened with the Detroit Lions, but maybe he could still coach the defensive side of the ball. It's the offensive line and the defensive line. And specifically when we talk about the defensive line, you have 3 NFL talents that left the building. Tyleik Williams, I think, was a fantastic defensive tackle. I think Jack Sawyer, JTT, these are very talented players that also had a ton of experience. I think when we're talking about the leadership and the experience qualities that Ohio State has and what they're going to be missing going into the season is when they got punched in the mouth by Michigan at the end of last year and people were saying Ryan Day should be fired. It's over for them. They're going to get to the college football playoff and it's going to be done. You had seniority on this team to rally the troops and go smack Tennessee around, go smack Oregon, make it all the way to the college football national championship and win the whole thing. What happens when this team that has so much new, so much unfamiliar, not nationally known names at the forefront of your program, what happens when they get punched in the face? Because it's going to happen somewhere. It could happen week 1. Arch Manning goes and lights you up for 330 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no picks, and Texas walks into your building and smacks you around. I know I just said in the long run it may not make a big impact, but we're going to find out quickly if that does happen, what is this Ohio State team made of very early on? Now, are they college football playoff contenders? Of course. Could they make a run in the college football playoff? Of course. But do I see them as a definitive team going into the season as a national title contender? And when I say that, a team that is going to win the whole thing, like we felt confident going into last year with the amount of talent that they brought in, I'm not on that train. I don't see it this year.